San Juan Representative J.V. Ejercito Estrada has always been relatively more low-key than his politician relatives. For instance, he is known to be the only Estrada who is not in show business. His popularity soared after he began using the screen name of his movie idol father, former President Joseph Estrada. Sibling rivalry between J.V. and his half-brother Senator Jinggoy Estrada does not seem to want to go away. J.V. was accused of arson after rumors spread that the San Juan city government, led by his mother, Mayor Gia Gomez, had a hand in a fire that raged on Christmas Day. In Congress, he voted against the RH law, while he authored and sponsored over 160 bills, including the Freedom of Information Bill and the Kasambahay Bill. As we continue our Know Your Candidate series, we have two prominent sons of political veterans. With me is our resident election analyst, former COMELEC Commissioner, Attorney Gregorio Larrazabal. Hi, Goyo.
Evening.
All right, to start off, let's welcome the son of a former president, San Juan Representative Joseph Victor J.V. Ejercito Estrada. J.V. Ejercito Estrada. Even I'm still trying to get used to saying that name. Are you comfortable with that name yourself?
Well, of course, I'm used to being called J.V. Ejercito. But it's not that I changed my name. I just added Estrada as a nickname because my father told me that there are votes, no? There are people who know us, especially in the countrysides, in the far-flung areas, as Estrada. But in the urban areas, there's no problem. But the only difference, Nancy, is there's no deception here. Had I wanted, I could have used my real name, which is Joseph. So in the election, in the list, it may come out as Joseph Ejercito Estrada. But I still use JV because whether it's Ejercito or JV Estrada, it's still people would pertain to me, not to my father.
In name recall, like you mentioned, how important is a family name? Because we've noticed that there are a lot of politicians whose other family members are running for government offices. So, like for yourself, what do you think of, say, the name recall?
Well, I think it's a very, it's an opening. I would say probably 30%, maybe 50%, especially in national politics. But right now, I still think that with the influx of young voters, people would scrutinize more, no? And they would look at the track record, the credentials, performance. Having the name is not enough. It's an advantage, no doubt, but I think voters now are more intelligent and they would look at the credentials more than the name.
Okay, you're saying voters now are more intelligent. You're making a comparison between now and the past. Yes. How do you think politics has changed, the political landscape, between the time your father was campaigning, then of course he's campaigning for mayor again now, but when he was running in past elections and in the campaign arena that you're facing now?
Well, it's different right now in the sense that the battle has shifted into media warfare already, probably because of technology, probably also because almost people, even in the far-flung areas, have television right now. So it has shifted to a media warfare, which is more, I think, more expensive. So before it was about 30% media, 70% conventional, traditional rallies, motorcades, market visits. But now I think it has been reversed. It's probably about 20-30% conventional, 70% media.
That's also the breakdown of the time that you, generally a reflection of the time that you spend actually pressing the flesh and stomping the provinces. Yes. And your sorties.
Well, in a national scale, I think that's the composition. But in a local, it's still, you still have to be seen, you still have to be touched, and you still have to shake hands with as much people as possible. But in the national campaign, it's really media exposure more than the actual presence.
But how do you cope? Like you mentioned, it's getting expensive, and as a candidate, as a senatorial candidate, how do you cope with the expenses? How do you cope with the requirement that you have to be media heavy for this campaign?
It's very, actually, it's very hard. No? It's in fact, we are relying on donors, on supporters. That's why, if you notice, I have my advocacy ads, but it's only once a day because it's very expensive. So I really welcome COMELEC's decision to have that 120-minute limit, because I think it will level the playing field among all the candidates, and probably it's hard to believe, but I really welcome it, because I'm really having a hard time putting up the needed funds for the TV ads that is needed.
All right, this constant friction between you and your brother, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, doesn't seem to want to go away. Who is really the favorite anyway? Is it you or Senator Jinggoy?
Well, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's more of, I think politics is still the bottom line of our conflict in the past. I say in the past because
you said that before.
Father, yes, because our father already called us again in this latest conflict, and probably we both realized that he's not getting any younger. My father told us, I'm 75 already. Your grandfather died at 78. Your uncle only 81. Another uncle at 77. So, yeah, I'm not too far, no. So probably we both realized that, and at least even though we are not close, at least we are not fighting anymore.
You're going to stick to your word this time. All right.
I hope so.
The latest survey shows that you're in 5th spot. And I asked this question from a former guest before, but I'd like to ask you: does that make you more relaxed, or does that challenge you more? What spot are you looking at?
No, Nancy, I always run scared. Even during the time that I was mayor, during the first term, no, I was up against a former mayor, so I really had to work hard. But even during my second and third terms, that I ran against nuisance, or I was virtually unopposed, I still run. I always run scared. I don't want to be complacent, and I don't want to take chances. Right now that I'm number 5, number 4, number 5, I still have to work hard to make sure I still go around, to make sure that I would maintain. Because if I do not exert that effort, the others will really catch up, because they will exert doubly harder than us.
Congressman, there's a question, because there seems to be a reversal of roles, because before you were mayor, your dad was senator and your brother was senator. Now you're running for senator and your dad is running for mayor. How does this affect dynamics? When you're having lunch on Sunday, does it make things different?
Well, yeah, because before I was confined in the city, and of course they had to, if they run for a national office. Of course, they go around. I help them a lot, no? Because San Juan Zaman is we have no problem. So I used to campaign for them.
But they can't do that now for you, because your dad is running for mayor.
Yes.
He's also busy.
No, but he said that he will be campaigning for us for the first half, not until the local election campaign starts. So, and of course, my father also wants to make sure that I win, because I think he is more concerned in my victory than his victory. Okay. Probably that's the father in him.
All right, just to expand Goya's comment on the musical chairs that seems to be going on with different family members running for those different posts, right? Political dynasty then comes to mind. Do you feel you have to defend yourself?
There are good. I always say there are good and bad dynasties, Nancy.
So do you admit there is a dynasty?
Yes, there is.
Okay, but
there
yours
are
is a
good
good
dynasties.
one. Okay.
And I've been going around the country, and I've seen in some provinces there are dynasties that rule decades, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But when the second or third generation takes over and they don't have performance, or they don't deliver services or as expected, these dynasties crumbled already. So what I'm saying is that nowadays, it's not enough to have the name. You really have to have performance. No? So I would say that as long as we do not use intimidation, coercion, or the traditional guns, goods, and gold, I think let us leave it to the people to decide.
But there's a question regarding dynasties now, because you are a representative in an urban center as compared to the rural. Does it demystify it? Because the presumption is that the voters in Metro Manila are smarter and more aware. So the issue of dynasty is not anymore as important as in the province. Is this correct, or it's all the same?
Well, you're correct in that sense, Attorney, because in Metro Manila, voters are probably harder to convince, no? Whereas in the provinces, I'm not saying that the voters are easy to convince, but somehow the dynasties are more pronounced or more obvious
In the province,
in the provinces
as compared to urban centers.
As compared to urban centers, especially in the rural areas.
All right, just yesterday you reacted to the use of the word imposter.
Yes.
You know, in Pinoy's statement. Do you feel alluded to?
Well, if they're saying that we're trying to portray ourselves as allies of the president, we're trying to portray ourselves as constructive opposition, no? That when the president is doing well, we have to commend him. But if in issues that we feel that we do not agree, we just have to voice out our opinions. But I just want to say something, no, with the Liberal Party. If they are saying that we are trying to ride on the president's popularity, how come they cannot even put up their own slate? None of their candidates are even in the winning circle.
Right,
they had to adopt the incumbent senators.
Okay, you've always been candid, so answer us this: who do you think are the imposters in the Daang Matuwid?
The imposters in Daang Matuwid? No, they're not imposters. We're not trying to ride on the president's popularity, and what we're saying now. No? Of course, they have the president, they have a king. At least we have our three kings also to back us up.
All right, is Malacanang the end game, just like your father?
Well, they are trying to say that the 2013 elections is a referendum and a prelude to the 2016 elections. But right now, I think people would vote for candidates based on their own individual merits, on their platforms. And I think the president or the vice president's endorsement would matter, but I think they would look at the individual candidates more than the. Of course, it may play a little influence, but I think it's more of the people would look at the individual characters and the credentials of the candidates.
They're telling us we have a few moments left, but my final question is: most sons of prominent political fathers seem to try to portray themselves as being their own men and trying to dissociate from their father in a sense. That doesn't seem to be a priority for you. You don't feel like you have to say you're your own man?
Well, probably we have different styles. Even as mayor, I would say that my father, my brother had their own different styles of governance, and what is good with them is that they never interfered in my administration. For example, when I was mayor, right now. But time and again, I still, of course, I have to consult my father once in a while.
All right.
To make sure that I make the right decisions.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it at that, at least for now. Thanks to our guest, San Juan Representative J.V. Ejercito Estrada. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, up next, the representative of the Lone District of Aurora, Juan Edgardo Sonny Angara, on the hot seat. Stay tuned. This is Elections 2013. Sonny Angara, shot to fame as one of the spokesmen of the prosecution panel in the Corona impeachment trial. He is on his third term as representative of the Lone District of Aurora. Sonny and his father, Senator Edgardo Angara, are in the midst of controversy over the Aurora Pacific Economic Zone, or APECO project. There are allegations that father and son authored the APECO law so that their family could benefit financially from the project covering 12,400 hectares of land. In Congress, he authored the UP Charter, Magna Carta for Women, and the Juvenile Justice Law, among the 250 other bills he had filed. How much of Sonny is Senator Edgardo Angara Sr.? How much is he his own brand? Welcome back. You're still watching Elections 2013. This time, we're joined by the representative of the Lone District of Aurora, Representative Juan Edgardo Sonny Angara. Thanks for joining us this
Good
evening.
evening, Nancy.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner
Good
Goyo.
evening.
All right, how significant to your career do you think was your stint as co-spokesman of the prosecution panel in the Corona impeachment trial?
Well, fairly significant. I wouldn't say it's the main chapter of my career, but I think it's an important chapter because it introduced me to the public and
Right.
it was a test for our legal skills. Every day is a new event. Hindi mo alam anong mangyayari. So,
That's where I was meaning to go with the question. What do you think has been your defining moment then, so far?
I don't know if there's been one single moment. I think it's been an accumulation of moments, you know. The bills that you pass, things like that. And the impeachment, I guess, one of them.
But as you're running for senator, how important will your dad be in your campaign?
I think
Kasi
fairly-
he's a senator na, he's incumbent senator.
I think he'll be fairly important, especially if he goes around and campaigns for me. It makes it easier for me. Hiwalay kami. If I can't make this rally, siya pupunta. I think malaking bagay.
Proxy siya na.
Yeah. That'd be fantastic if he could do that. I don't know if he'll do it, but
Well then, how much of the Sonny Angara do we know is the creation of Senator Edgardo Angara? Did you ever see yourself being
he made
here
me.
this
He made
yeah,
me.
literally,
Physically.
literally. Yeah. But how much of your political career do you think has to do with your father wanting you to be doing this? Did you ever see this when you were growing up?
Not at a young age. Later on, when I was in college and in law school, I think that's really when the kind of the drive to be in politics.
What was the motivation? To continue the legacy, or
No,
where
not
did
at
it
all.
come
Not
from?
at all. In fact, it was maybe to make my own mark to leave kind of a legacy and to go down in history. It sounds a little egotistic.
Yeah.
But you're following your dad's footsteps. Don't you feel this pressure that you have to do what your dad is doing or did, or that's what you want to do?
There's pressure a little bit, but not to do exactly. Hindi naman pareho yung ginawa niya, but pressure to kind of do it, keep up that standard of service. I feel that a little bit. No?
All right. It's been said that you were personally handpicked by the president to be in the LP senatorial slate. Tell us about your relationship with Pinoy. How close are you? Text mates? How close are you?
I'm not that close to the president, to be honest. He was my colleague during my first term. He was outgoing. He was on his last term, and we were together on a lot of issues like the impeachment. But we didn't have too many conversations, to be honest. I'm quite. I have to say, it's a napakalaking karangalan. It's a big honor to be part of the president's team.
All right. Do you feel that it's natural for you to be in the LP? We don't really know what parties really mean these days. I mean, you yourself, you're like a part of a coalition representing
LDP.
LDP,
right.
of course.
That's right.
LDP, of course. I
It's,
mean, what's your take on, let's say, the UNA saying that they're the constructive opposition? I mean, what is this all about? What is the dynamic now that's prevailing in politics? It's just
Kanya-kanyang
really
marketing
personalities.
yan, di ba? Kanya-kanyang marketing. I guess the LP's, the Team Pinoy's marketing is to, say, we're here, they're there,
Okay.
make our choice. But I guess the marketing of UNA is kind of to say na, we're serving the country and we're constructive. So, kanya-kanyang marketing yun.
Okay, there's also been reports that your father had dropped his gubernatorial bid in Aurora in order to focus on your campaign because of a little concern that perhaps you weren't rating as highly as you would have wanted.
Well, I think that's probably a consideration also. Maybe he wanted to help me, I'm sure. The first run is always the hardest, I think. So, but I think he really didn't. He was kind of a reluctant candidate also in Aurora.
Also,
Because people were telling him that if he ran, there would be no opposition and it would be an easy campaign. I guess the reality is different.
okay, I want to pick up on that. If you ran, there would be no opposition. When
Yeah.
you ran in 2004, you ran unopposed.
No, I had an opponent.
You had an opponent?
07 was when I ran an
07
Yeah.
unopposed. I'm sorry, I sit corrected. Okay, and your dad, of course, was senator, and your aunt, Bellaflor Angara Casillo, was the governor.
That's right.
I mean, clearly, that would smack of political dynasty. I asked that question of
Right.
JV Ejercito Estrada.
Right.
Do you feel like you have to defend yourself from political dynasty?
No, not really. I think
Accusations.
what I feel I have to do is say what we've achieved and why the people elected us and maybe why they've maintained our trust in us.
But the question is, in Aurora, how do you justify? You've been there for how many decades or how many years? How do you see the development of Aurora in relation to a lot of officials being Angaras? So people might question that.
Commissioner Nancy, a lot of people get the impression that we were there since forever, but actually there's a big lull when there was no Angara in public office. There was an Angara after the World War, but then for like maybe 2-3 decades, there was no Angara. So they think it's a continuous, but it's never been
You
continuous.
came back in after EDSA.
No, after
the EDSA.
after my grandfather, there was nobody. And then my father served, and then his sister ran for governor, and then I went in. So it's not really been decades. Like, I've only been in Congress for 9 years.
All right, this thorny issue about the APECO. I mean, let's just get that out of the way. The allegations are that your family stands to benefit financially from it. Architect Felino Palafox filed a plunder case against
Sure.
it, and indigenous peoples are up in arms. What's the status there?
APECO is, people have to understand, there's not much information that comes out because Kasigun is kind of a remote place. But if you read the law, it's a fantastic law. There are maybe 30, 35 bills that people want to pass their own economic zone and Freeport in their respective areas. And the intention is really to provide jobs because, let me ask you, who's going to invest in Northern Aurora unless you provide incentives? Who's going to create jobs there unless you build the infrastructure?
Yeah. Well, the people
and
who believe
make
in
it
the Pacific
attractive?
Coast.
Yeah,
Are willing
I
to
mean,
brave the weather there.
But really, we have to be more, in a sense, ambitious in our development plans, you know, because, I mean, if the Taiwanese were not ambitious, the port of Kaohsiung would never have been built. If the Chinese were not ambitious, Shenzhen would not be what it is now.
All right, now one of your committees is education. What's your take on the K-12? Is that a good thing?
I'm for it, yes. It's long overdue, and it's a good thing for those because what's the percentage of our population who gets to go to college? It's only 20-21%.
And the fear that the enrollment rate for college is going to go down, that's temporary, right?
It will in the short run, but in the long run, we have better students. We have our public has a better chance of getting jobs. So I think it's overall it's a good thing.
You have another bill that you authored, the Child Welfare Act. It's in the BICAM now. Any chances of it? What happened?
The Early Years Act, that was initially vetoed. I don't know why it was vetoed, but then we refiled it and it was passed by both houses. I hope it passes. It's for the ages of 0 to 4. It's kind of a combination of daycare and education, kindergarten for 0 to 4 because we already passed the universal kindergarten.
Okay, some say that you became a trapo, quote unquote, when you got Sarah Geronimo. Of course, Sarah Geronimo was also part of your father's earlier campaign, right?
Sure.
How important do you think is media endorsement in these days when social media is at the forefront?
Well, it's very important, I think. I would
Still
welcome
very
an endorsement from Nancy Orlando or Goyo Larrazabal.
You wish.
No, but I'm saying, I don't know how that makes one a trapo to get someone to deliver your message, you know, because a trapo is someone who doesn't perform and who kind of doesn't do anything in his position, and definitely that's not me.
You know, social media is quite big now, especially in the campaign, and you are active in Twitter. And how there are questions with regard to Twitter accounts. You handle your own Twitter account.
Yes,
you
yes,
tweet,
yes.
but how do you handle trolls?
I actually usually ignore them. Oh,
You just
I think
ignore
you know, why give them airtime? You know, it's like I choose who I talk to, diba?
The cyber trolls or the real
Yeah.
trolls? All right, well, we're still talking about promotion. Would you have agreed to endorse a perfume like you had last year or agreed to host a morning TV talk show if you had no intentions of running for the Senate?
I think so, because anything that kind of increases your awareness, that's the position I'm in. I don't have 100% awareness. So anything that helps me deliver my message more effectively, I think I would do.
The campaign of the senatorial candidate starts on February 12, and Chairman Brillante said that, you know, ads on public utility vehicles will have to be removed. You see some buses which have your image in it.
Yes.
What do you intend to do, or is there something you will do when come February 12?
I was a little disappointed because I was preparing to have more made, but I told them to take it down already come
Okay.
February 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, how much of all of this is you wanting to become a star? I mean, you admitted at one point that you wanted to join That's Entertainment. For those of us
What?
old enough
I
to know
never-
this.
I never admitted
Okay.
that.
I'm going to kill the
I never
researcher.
admitted that.
Okay, but for the sake of argument, how much
That's so false.
that's so bad, right? But anyway.
I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, it's a value judgment that someone makes,
yes.
but it's not true in my case.
All right, but like how much of doing what you're doing has to do with wanting to feel like a star?
It's not wanting to be a star. It's people being aware of you and knowing who you are and kind of having that trust in you. It makes you a more effective politician.
There's a question now. When you talk about congressmen or senators, the big focus is the pork barrel and projects. What do you say that the main job of legislators is to pass bills, but the focus now of a lot of people are projects. Why is this?
Well, I think siguro dapat maintindihan ng tao. People have to understand that we're an underdeveloped country, and you go to the countryside, there's so little development. That's why congressmen kind of wanted to have pork barrel. But ako personally, okay lang sa akin kung walang pork barrel, basta pantay yung pagbigay ng mga proyekto.
All right. If and when you get elected to the Senate, do you see more or less of those Senate hearings in aid of legislation? Personally, are you beginning to think that that's really too much grandstanding already? Would you support more or less of those hearings in aid of legislation?
I think there's a valid purpose to investigations in aid of legislation. Sometimes there's no legislation that results from it, but overall that is an underrated part of legislation. Akala ng tao gumagawa ka lang ng batas. No, it's also oversight. It's part of seeing that laws are properly executed. All
right. We've got to thank Representative Sonny Angara, Lone District of Aurora. Thank you so much for coming to the set this evening.
I didn't want to be on that.
I'm not admitting. All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Tune in again next week as we discuss and dissect election issues that matter to you. I'm Nancy Irlanda, and this is Elections 2013.
Thank you.